Going on to another what if of what potentially could have been a generational player, but what if Rick Ankiel never got the yips? I'm not sure if you're familiar with Rick Ankiel and that whole saga.
I'm not. I'm familiar with the yips as a concept, but tell me more.
So Rick Ankiel was this studded prospect, pitching prospect for the St. Louis Cardinals around 2001, I want to say, 2000 season. I believe he was like finished third for Rookie of the Year. His whole thing was is that they got him as a prospect, and like he was like 19 or 20 years old, and it was that he had top notch curveball, and there was this whole idea of he has the tools to be in a major league. He's major league ready as far as his stuff, but do we want to mentally put this guy through it at 19 years old? Like we didn't have these young phenom kids now, and they've almost set the pressure so high because now it's that you're almost expected to be a 19-year-old phenom. But that was before we gave them the chances. But there was also the worry of that if this doesn't work out, do we damage a good physical skill set by killing their mind? So Rick Ankiel becomes they finally call him up for he pitches pretty much I think a full season. Ends up being the game one starter of a playoff game against the Atlanta Braves. Cardinals are comfortably ahead in this game, but he throws one or two wild pitches that just kind of like the game was out of question, but it was like what happened there kind of thing. And this manifested into him legitimately having the yips as a pitcher and him, throwing a ton of wild pitches and all of a sudden just losing it, going to the minor leagues and just literally losing the ability as a pitcher to throw it to home plate, which is, ended up doing that. Now, Rick Ankiel's story ended up being that he ended up reinventing himself as a position player, ended up almost having this Disney kind of moment with the Cardinals, where the Cardinals were a struggling team in the early 2000s or sometime in the mid 2000s there. And he came back and gave like a little spark plug where he hit some walk-off home runs. And he actually had two of the greatest outfield throws I've ever seen in my entire life, because this was a guy who had as good of a pitching arm as anybody. It wasn't like he was throwing off the chain velocity-wise. But if you type in Rick Ankiel outfield assist, you'll see these two throws he makes at Coors Field that are as good of any outfield throws you're ever going to see in your life. But he was going to be one of those can't-miss pitching prospects, maybe a Clayton Kershaw of his own generation as far as the curveball he was supposed to have, who just lost the yips all because of through freak circumstances, ended up being the thing that they feared ended up actually happening, that they feared that they would put him in a high pressure situation and he would mentally implode. And then suddenly a guy who was as good of anybody as throwing a ball in 60 feet, 6 inches could not throw it to hit the broadside of a barn.
Mm-hmm. This is probably before the advent of like sports psychology as a thing and finding ways to work through it. So do you think maybe if this happened now, it would have been different?
I don't even know if now, we may say that we're a little bit more accepting or a little bit, softened our nature as sports fans, but I don't think in that, there was, it probably wasn't spoken to positively, or the way that you were talked about back then is probably not playing in 2025 as well, as far as maybe, questioning someone's mental fortitude or total sanity.
Yeah, I think I mean more from like a...
You would tag on somebody for that being weakness. Now you actually feel bad for them a little bit more. And that was kind of one of those ones where even him at that time, but like when Chuck Knobloch for the Yankees got it, it was made fun of. That was the whole ordeal, so it's kind of like this moment, it was a little bit more because he was still young, but no, I guess I don't know. They definitely didn't have quite the way we did now, which I still don't know if we've even got sports psychology right.
Yeah, I mean more from like a team perspective, like knowing that there is a fix for this using psychology. I mean, fans are going to be fans. I mean, I think they're going to rip on the guy no matter what, and they might be harsh on him depending on how much money he's making and all that. But I mean more from like a team perspective, like the same way.
Right, how your teammates handle this. Yeah, because I'd say your teammates probably in 2000 probably were not going to be the most receptive, I guess I would say, or as, like that was probably when, people use locker room talk a little more freely, I'll just say.